Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we are, as promised, taking a look at the Canon C200 versus the X-T4. Oh man, it's a little bit hot. I gotta go inside. Now, starting off with the cameras, they both have their benefits and not so great benefits. For example, with the C200, you do have a built-in headphone jack, which compared to the X-T4, you need to use a dongle or a battery grip to have a headphone jack, which is kind of a bummer. You also have a full-size HDMI, as well as an SDI port. You have ND filters, you have XLR inputs, as well as a better audio interface. And you also have a Canon mount, which is just a little bit more flexible from the get-go. However, comparing that to the X-T4, it does have some benefits over the C200. For example, the size is just a little bit nicer to travel with, put on a gimbal, etc. But you also have 10-bit recording, which also comes with H.265. You can take photos as well, which is great, especially for YouTube. You need to take the thumbnail. And you also have built-in image stabilization in the body. And last thing that I found out, that you can use the X-T4 as a webcam in various different apps on your computer, which is pretty cool, especially since I use a PC and it doesn't have a webcam built into the monitor. So it means I am able to use this as a webcam, which is pretty cool. So starting off with the first one, the X-T4 on the right is using the 35mm f2. And with both shots, they look really nice. I just use my 120D to light me with a key light, and the C200 does have a little bit more dynamic range straight off the bat, as the Eternal Film simulation does pump in a bit more contrast. But noticing when I jump in a little bit closer at 200%, the X-T4 is a lot sharper than the C200. This may be because of my lens, or it could just be in general. I do find the C200 being always just a little bit softer, which I don't mind, to be honest. It just removes that really digital, sharp look. Moving on to the next shot. This is of Eli on my dog. I just wanted to test out the dynamic range and just the detail I can see in his fur. So the first shot I did in F-Log, and then I just added a little bit of correction. And they're both different shots because he moved, which sucks when you're dealing with animals. You can't really get them back in the same position. But as we zoom in here, I do find there is a little bit more detail on the C200. This may be because he's just a little bit closer, but I think there is a little bit more detail in his fur. But on the X-T4, you do notice that it's a bit sharper on the things around him as well. So let me know what your thoughts are on that one. Now, the third one is the one that I find the most interesting, which is the slow motion. Now, both cameras, as you'll see, they're okay at slow motion. One thing that I hate about my C200 that I didn't mention in the last video was that the slow motion capability is really garbage. Like, I never use it because it's so soft. As you can see in this shot, I focused in the center of the image, but it just looks like something is just out of focus, and this is just really because it's so soft. If you have a fix for it, definitely let me know in the comments below. But yeah, my 120 frames per second is always just so soft that I never use it. So comparing that to the X-T4 footage, with the X-T4 footage, you do notice that you can actually see some detail in the various things, but the colors are pretty like mushy, like they're not very appealing at all. So both of them get like a B. More so the C200 gets like a C. The X-T4 gets a B for just being able to do it. It's a little bit better, but still not like epically usable in regards to slow motion in general. And as you can see, comparing them both side by side, you definitely can see a difference between the two. One looks out of focus and one just looks in focus, but yeah, both of the colors on both of them are all right. Now, I do find that the X-T4 is a little bit easier to use in slow motion if you want to use autofocus as well. Compared to the C200, you're stuck with using manual focus. Jumping over to the second example of the slow motion, I did shoot some bees. We do have this sweet lavender plant that always attracts some bees. And yeah, you really can see a huge difference. There's a lot more detail in this lavender and the B compared to the C200, where it just looks out of focus, but I swear I tried to get it in focus as much as possible. Now next up is the rolling shutter. So I put both cameras head to head, I slid them across, and both of them look quite similar. Like I really can't tell the difference between the two. Even doing this shot side by side and pausing it, they both look identical in terms of rolling shutter. So they're not anything special like the Red Komodo, but they are just okay. Next up, testing a little bit more image quality than anything and colors, is the test where I did the C200 in raw light versus the X-T4 in 10-bit f-log. And the results are interesting. I personally like the colors that are coming out of the C200 a little bit more than the X-T4, and just the sharp look of the X-T4 is super interesting. So this is the shots both without grading, and they were on the exact same settings. I think my ND filter was just a little bit off, so the X-T4 is exposed a little bit brighter than the C200, but I corrected them to look somewhat similar, and that's what they look like. And they look both great. The X-T4 has just that sharper look, and as you can see when we jump in, you can read the garbage bin 240 on the X-T4 footage compared to the C200 footage. Next up, my dad decided to come out and water the garden, so I got some shots of him on my really expensive side-by-side camera rig. And yeah, the shots look great. I shot them both in 4K 50 frames per second. I personally am leaning towards the Canon colors a little bit more than the Fuji's, but there's no doubt that the Fuji is a lot sharper, which I think is pretty good, especially when we punch in here to 200%. You can really see a little bit more detail in just everything, which is a little bit nicer for shooting various things. For me personally, when I shoot interviews, I do like them a little bit softer, so I love using my Canon for that. But maybe for some architectural stuff, I could definitely start using the X-T4 and get a really nice sharp image of like buildings and lines and various things of that nature. So wrapping it up with a quick autofocus test as I wrap everything up. The X-T4 is a great camera, and it's really comparable to the C200. Both of them have pretty average slow motion. They both shoot 4K 60 pretty well, have a great log profile, and they both have really nice colors respectively. I personally do lean towards the Canon still for the colors and the skin tones. And all-round image, I really like that soft look. Whereas the X-T4 is great that it does have that sharper image. So I definitely think I want to try it out with doing some architectural shoots, which I think I have one on Monday, which I can try it out on that. It's a great camera, I think, for the price especially. It's not going to replace my C200, but I'm so glad that I get to try it out and let you guys know what I think. I know a whole bunch of other people who use the Fuji system as their B camera, so maybe that's an option for me too. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions or you want me to do any specific tests, drop them down in the comments below. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for everyone's encouragement from the last video. I'm excited to continue doing more of these. But yeah, so if you have any suggestions or anything, let me know down in the comments below. And see you in the next one. Bye.